is our song forever. You are worthy. Oh, for 1,000 tongues to sing my great Redeemer's praise, the glories of my God and King, the triumphs of His grace. My gracious Master and my God, assist me to proclaim, to spread through all the earth abroad the honors of Thy name. So come on.
Okay, feel free to munch away. We're going to get our pamphlet started. This is like a very favorite meeting of the year. If you think, gosh, I just have to why do I need to think about school and options? All of that. We are so blessed to live in where we do because there are so many options for us, especially like post-COVID. There are charter schools, private schools, obviously public schools, homeschool routes, and just within the homeschool community, there's a million different ways you can do that. So we have 6 panelists that have volunteered to come and share their experiences, mom to mom. Some of them have been working in the field, so they kind of have a little bit different perspective. So I hope you can glean some really good tidbits. I've been at MomLife for like 6 years now, and I love every year. I always get something cool from it. On the table is some paper if you want to take notes. You've got pens, so that's just for your notes. So in the meantime, I'm going to bring up Becky Mason. She's going to be our moderator. Excuse me. And then Janae Kramer, Danielle Young, Sherry Vasey. I spelled your name wrong on here. Sorry, Sherry. Becky Daly, Pam Lee, and Kara Pingle. We have the hot seats right up here for you. We voluntold one of our own leadership. What? Yeah.
Y'all want to bring it over here? Oh, yeah, just go front. There you go. Is that good? All right. All right. Well, Jessica just did a great introduction. Ladies, it's good to see you all. Again, as they said, it's great that you all braved the rain. I learned one thing moving to California years ago, that California people don't know what to do in the rain, so many times they avoid it. So you guys rocked it. Thank you for bringing out kids, and yeah, especially the ones who provided the food. Brunch was fabulous. For those of you that might not know me or know my name, I am Becky Mason. And I'm going to let these lovely ladies tell you who they are, because I could name off a bunch of names, but that's not going to help you out because you're not going to be able to really put them with their faces. So I'm going to pass it off and let you guys just introduce yourself really quick and what you're representing as far as the school panel goes.
I'm Janae Kramer, and I'm the Director of Children's Ministry here actually at Riverview. And my family and I live in Fallbrook, just down the road. My husband and I have 3 kids, ranging from the sophomore in college, sophomore in high school, and an 8th grader, and we chose the private school route.
My name is Danielle. We live in Oceanside. I'm one of the homeschool moms, but we full-time homeschool and do co-ops with our community, and I have 4 kids, twin 9-year-old girls, a 7-year-old, and a 4-year-old.
I'm Cara Pingle. I'm kind of a last-minute addition, kind of a hybrid of a hybrid of a hybrid almost. I have 6 boys ranging from almost 21 down to 7. We've lived in California for 6 years, and we homeschooled in Nebraska, South Dakota, and Ohio, so it's interesting to compare different states. And I'm currently the director over at Zion Christian Learning Center, which is kind of a community of hybrid, little bit of everything, so a lot of different experience.
Hi, I'm Sherry VC, and I work downstairs in the childcare teaching the 4-5 class for MomLife. I also substitute teach for public school, and my children have gone to public school since kindergarten. I have a daughter who is 11 and a son who's 13, and my husband and our family, we live here in Fallbrook, and we've always my kids have gone to public school, and that's what I'm going to talk about today.
Hello. Again, I was voluntold to be up here, not volunteered. So, I'm Pam Lee. Me and my husband, we have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. I call us hybrid homeschoolers because we go through a farm school, which I absolutely love. So I will be talking about what I call hybrid homeschooling. Also in Fallbrook.
Hi, I'm Becky Daly, and I have 8 children. The oldest is going to be 19, and my youngest is 3, and I have done many things over the years. My boys have gone to public high school. We've done hybrid and charter, and now we're homeschooling through a charter, but I'm talking today about the charter school as kind of a part-time schooling option and part homes. Oh, I'll just wait for the next. Oh, you need it. We'll share here.
Oh, yeah. Turn that. Yeah, there we go. That way. Does that one work?
Hello.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so some of you ladies, I just want to reiterate something really quick. So some of you have seen this before, right? Like raise your hand if you've been to the school panel before. Okay. So the cool thing is that even though you've been here, you've seen it, you've heard it, sometimes we have new people that come up, some people that have shared before, but sometimes you're at a different place. And last year, you could have been thinking something totally different from your child than what you're thinking now. So that's what's so great about this. Is sometimes you go, you know what, last year I was doing this and it was great, and I kind of heard or I kind of listened, but I didn't really pay that close attention, and now you're like, oh, you know what, we've got some changes coming up, or we're wanting to change some things. So that's what's so great about this, is that it refreshes your memory. It also just gives you, again, we have some people up here that we haven't had before to give you their standpoint. The other cool thing is that as you've heard from many of these ladies, is they've done different things, right? So some of them have done the exact same thing. Their kids have gone, like Sherry said, my kids have done public school since kindergarten. You have some that are like, oh, my child's done this and this. That's what's so great about being a mom and getting to help your child with education, right? Like, it doesn't mean that it has to stay this way. Like, once you make that option, it's not like, oh, I'm stuck in that option. So always keep in mind that, like, things can change. Different things in your life can change. And so education can change. That's what's so great about this. So just remember that, and just remember to, like I say, we'll have some, at the end, some questions so that these ladies can ask a few things if the questions that we have did not answer that. Okay, so the first one is, so you've already told us about yourself and families. Also, so now you kind of went into it a little bit, but a little bit more detailed. Give us a brief description of the schooling method you use for your family. And then you could actually, with that brief description of what that method is, possibly just go ahead and add into what does a typical school day look like for you?
Okay. Oh, just kidding. Me or you? Okay. So just in speaking to charter and hybrid, years past we did Fallbrook Homeschool Academy, but I tried to look into it, and I believe that now that's all online at home, and you're connected with a teacher, so that is a local option. But what I did for many years with my kids was actually in Temecula. It's called iShine. It's part of Springs Charter, and it was a good option for us for a lot of years because they go to school 4 days a week, and then they have 1 day at home on Fridays, and they do a project. So at that time for me, I wasn't having to do a math lesson and a science and everything with all these different ages. It was just each kid had one project on their home day. That school also has where they can do their 4 days at home and go on Fridays for classes. So I know there are multiple schools that have that type of part-time, which I really liked because I still felt like more quality time with them working on those things and having them home a little bit more, but also like the burden of all the educating wasn't necessarily on me. So I felt like good about them going and then good about having them home part of the time. Also, charters usually have a specialty, so it might be like a STEM school or like something. For that school, it's more based on their learning styles, and so they do little assessments, and then they also have a little more freedom. They're allowed to like lay on the rug and write their paper or go outside when it's reading time or whatever. They give them a little more choice on where and how to do their work. Work in groups. They do a lot of centers, so they switch every, so often to a different activity. So it's a little bit, I think, a little more engaging than some of the typical public schools. They usually have a little bit smaller of a class size. And let me think. What was the other question? What does a day look like? So the school started at 8:30 and it's in Temecula, so we do have to leave a little early, and then they're there all day. The other thing I liked about that charter in particular is they have a half-day kindergarten. So to me, kindergarten, it's too long for my kids at 5 to stay until 3 o'clock, so they get out at like 11:30. I liked that for kindergarten, and then the other kids, they stay until 3, and then it's a drive home. So the school days are long, being that it's not nearby, but then you have your Fridays home. So that's me.
So we technically homeschool through a charter through Coastal Academy, but we are on C-Track, which is the full homeschool track. But really, I call us a hybrid homeschool family because my daughter goes to Gathered Oak Farm. I know a lot of you guys are familiar with that. They have a couple different options, but my daughter does the core program. So she's there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They go over every single core subject. So I joke because I'm like, they literally do it all for me. But it's amazing because they're in nature. They have, a little farm there. But they're actually going over actual, core subjects. They go over math, reading, writing, all that stuff. And then anything outside of that is supplemental. So, reading and helping her out with her writing, going over some science stuff. But it's more, again, supplemental and more kind of play-based at home. So nothing too crazy. But yeah, I love it. It's so beneficial.
Thank you. So both of my kids are in the Bonsall School District. They started out at Bonsall Elementary, and now they're at Sullivan Middle School. So our typical day, we start at 8 every day, Monday through Thursday. They go until 2:45, and then on every Friday, they get out early at 1:15. And they went there for kindergarten, TK, and they have the same schedule. So Monday through Thursday until 2:45. I think the littles get out maybe 15 minutes earlier, like at 2:30. And then Fridays, they always have the short day at the elementary school as well. And my kids get 7 periods at middle school. They have all the core subjects plus PE every day. And then they also have an elective of their choice. My daughter does show choir, which she loves. And my son does STEAM, where he does like computer coding and 3D printing and all sorts of things that I could never teach him at home. So he's really happy to do that. And then my daughter also does the Sullivan soccer team, so she actually stays until 4 o'clock now on Mondays and Wednesdays. And that's our schedule.
First glance, our day-to-day schedule for my kiddos looks like it's the same. We've chosen 5 days at the Learning Center, so they come to Zion 5 days, 8 to 3. Within that, my high schooler down to my first grader are doing different programs, though, so I call us a hybrid as well. My high schooler is doing Compass Charter School, their online program. So for me, that was a great fit because it's all laid out with a guidance counselor and transcripts, and my oldest graduated through Compass. My youngest two, I have a homeschool affidavit, so they're homeschoolers. So even within the same family, you can be doing all different things. And then even my 8th grader, it's interesting you said about being in different places, because I'm literally changing programs for him right now because he was in the online program, and that's proving not to be the greatest fit. So that's when we pivot, and so he'll be in more traditional textbooks and workbooks, but again, day-to-day looks the same. Their programs are just a little bit different.
So yeah, we full-time homeschool, and we don't really have a daily schedule. We kind of have like a weekly rhythm, the way that it works for us. So Mondays we call them school days, but we're just home all day. Mondays and Thursdays, and the kids usually get their work done in like half hour to an hour after breakfast, and then they have free time, and if they choose not to, then it takes them as long until it gets done. So they'll work for 10 minutes on math, and then they'll go run and play, and then they'll come back and they'll read for 20 minutes, and then they'll go run and do something else, and then they'll come back to the table. So it's kind of like however they feel. We just do it all at the kitchen table, and it's hopefully cleaned up by dinner time, is kind of how it looks. So that's Mondays and Thursdays. And then Tuesdays, my kids spend time with my grandparents doing Italian cooking, sewing, and golf. I have very young grandparents, so not your average grandparents, but my 3 big kids, and now my little one gets to do that, which is really fun for them. And then on Wednesdays, we have like a pod school that we do with 4 other families where we go over art, history, geography, and science together. And we all homeschool through the same program at home, but we all do it different ways, and we're in different years, but we study the same, like we call them our riches together, which is really fun. And so it's ages from 9 to 2, and they all get to do it together, and each mom just leads one thing. So I have 20 minutes to prepare for every Wednesday, and I teach the kids just my class, but then my kids get to enjoy things that the other moms are very passionate about and teach very well, that again, I don't think I would do as well at home. And then Thursdays, we have another home day where the kids come and go to the table as they please. And then on Fridays, we have our community day. And so we go and we meet for 2 hours at a park in North County with about 20 other families. And one mom teaches a little lesson. We go for a hike, and then they play together. And that's, again, a very large age range in all these families. And we all homeschool completely differently. But it's very community nature-based. We just want to be outside together for a couple of hours and just support one another. And so we have a very like weekly rhythm instead of the day-to-day looks very different.
Okay, so my kids go to Calvin Christian Escondido. It's at the north end, and it is very traditional. So they're all on the same campus, and it's pretty much 8 to 3 every day. Elementary is 8 to 2:45. Kindergarten, I'm trying to think back and think about exactly how it works, but you have a choice to do like half kindergarten. It's not half day, but it's like every other day. And so that's something I do want to mention because you guys will be starting that early. The elementary school, a typical day would look traditional. You have your teachers, and I actually want to backtrack because it's a Christ-centered worldview, and that's what really drew us to the school, is that they train up the whole child, and it's a very well-rounded education. You could say, they don't say this, but it is a college prep school, and I can say that being on the other side. My son was very prepared for college, and college is actually very easy for him. And Calvin High School was difficult for him, so to speak. He had to work hard. And so that is a huge thing to consider. But going back, elementary school, just your traditional 8 to 2:45. It is a well-rounded education. So you have your music and your art, everything's like built in. So they all learn how to play an instrument, and that continues through high school. Their music program is amazing. They offer extracurricular things, sometimes different sports things after school, so your kids would just actually stay at school and do like a soccer club or something like that. They also have a musical every year, which is a beautiful production. I would say, I don't really know what to compare it to, but to me it seems like a profession. They bring in a whole team, and it's a professional thing. And that is a really cool opportunity also because they can stay on campus. So if they have practice, they're escorted over to the other side of campus, and they would just stay there, so it makes picking up easier in that way, and they feed your kids and do all that stuff. High school, junior high and high school look a little different. They're all of the sports are built into the school. So if you are in junior high, you play sports, and those practices, again, are right after school. So you're just doing a later pickup. And then, of course, high school is traditional sports, same music opportunities, just your traditional electives, things like that. So,
Excellent. Thank you. One thing I want to add too really quick is just so you were mentioning 2 different states, right? So if you're somebody that's military, just know every state can be different. But it's really easy to find online what the laws are, what, is expected of you. So don't go, well, I'm, moving in a year and I don't know. It's some similarities, but then it's different. Some states are not as strict as others. So it's just more or less just looking into that. So just realize that. And then also, I feel very blessed. I know California kind of gets a bad rap sometimes with education, but one thing that California offers are these charter schools. A lot of states do not offer these charter schools and do not have the money for you to be able to take part. So if you choose a charter school and you're like, hey, I'm just wanting to do the homeschool, but I want the funds so that my child can take piano lessons or horseback riding lessons or can do farm school. That is amazing. So just know, not all states offer that, and it's fantastic that California does. And there's so many different ways to be able to utilize those funds. All right, so really quick, I'm going to add these 2 kind of together. What were the primary factors in choosing your schooling? And then did some of that kind of go into how they address or handle moral and ethical values to help guide your family? So I know that can kind of change as time goes on, but was that part of the reason that you chose that route? And if it wasn't, still, how do you feel your school is kind of meeting that need for your family?
So absolutely, it was a determining factor for us. So I want to preface it by saying you can have Billy Graham be your teacher, K through 12, but it's not a guarantee that your kids are going to grow up and be a Jesus-loving adult, right? So I truly believe and know that it is what happens in the home, and that you mamas and your husbands are the primary influence on their faith. But we did choose Calvin because it is Christ-centered, and we feel like it really gives them a Christ-centered foundation, and just a really solid worldview. Another factor was that all the kids are on the same campus, so we weren't having to drop off and pick up at all different schools depending on their ages. It's a tight-knit community, and the teachers are there not for the paycheck. They don't get paid as much as public school teachers or charter school teachers, and oftentimes they have to wear a lot of hats, and they're there as a ministry, and I see that beyond a shadow of a doubt. It's a beautiful thing. They really, truly know our children, and they love them really unconditionally, and they're patient with them when they're not on their best behavior. We also love, I've already kind of mentioned just that all the extracurricular activities were all kind of together, and so I feel like it's easy planning. We're just always at the school. That's just where everything is. It's kind of the center of our life. We're either at church or at school when we're not at home. And you have to sign a statement of faith, and this is one thing I do want to explain. When you are checking if private Christian school is something you want to look into, make sure, there are schools now that I've noticed that are private schools but not Christian schools. They don't have a religious affiliation, so definitely, obviously, check into that. And I would also ask if you'll know in the admissions process if you sign a statement of faith. The school puts out a statement of faith, and so I think, making sure that aligns with your beliefs, because that's what they're going to be learning in school. So sometimes there's a religious affiliation. Calvin is Christian Reformed, and so there are some things that differ, but I actually think that's really good for my kids, because once they're in high school, they take doctrine, and as they're learning these really neat things, they are asking questions like, hey, I don't believe that. So they come home and we have amazing discussions. And, They know where they fall in predestination. They know where they fall in these things that are pretty amazing to figure out when you're 17, 18 years old. The other thing is at Calvin, you have to sign a statement of faith, basically saying your faith aligns with theirs in a sense where you're agreeing to your lifestyle and your faith. And so it kind of weeds out all of the, I would say, the things that are very prevalent in our society right now. It sort of weeds those things out, so to speak. I hope that makes sense. And so it really is cut and dry and very simple and clean and easy, if that makes sense. And that's a huge blessing, not to have to worry about those things.
Choosing homeschool for us was very simple. My husband was homeschooled growing up, and I asked every year growing up to be homeschooled. I grew up going to just the public school in Vista, so I also know what that is like, and I just wanted to raise my kids and be home. And so that was kind of the easiest decision. And then deciding what kind of homeschool we were going to do, we Charlotte Mason Homeschool Ambleside Online, which is an all-literature program. And we chose that one because I didn't like being told what to do every day, but didn't want complete freedom in everything. And so it was a really good in-between, and my husband got his master's in literature and writing, and so books were just very easily available to our family. So that's why we chose that. And then with the moral and ethical things, we teach catechism at home for fun, really, because the kids really enjoy it, and just another way. And then we do Awana, and we go to church. And so the kids are very much raised with the Christian worldview at home, and I just really enjoy being a part of that. And then our community at large is more mixed, which I also really enjoy because it gives the kids a chance to get to know other families and the other ways they're raised, and not everybody goes to church, and talking about that. And again, being home, we just get to have all of those really great discussions together, and again, guide our kids in the way that we know that the Lord has for them, and to present the Bible to them. So any reason that we have for anything is able to come from the Bible because we're able to give them that.
It was definitely a driving factor in our decision too. I was a teacher before my kids came along. My husband's a pastor. Homeschooling was always a great fit ever since our oldest was in kindergarten. And our last stop before California, we were homeschooling. Another family was struggling with homeschooling and jokingly was like, it would be great if we could homeschool, but then send them to you or other teachers. I'm like, haha, that's hilarious. And then we moved to California, and I was like, oh my goodness, we have so many options here. It's beautiful. What a support system. But I love what you two have said. In our oldest experienced private school, public school, homeschool, just since we've moved here. And there are opportunities everywhere for his faith formation, and I can see what he took from each experience and where he needed to stand up and defend his faith in different areas, no matter who he was with. So it's been a journey, but it's founded in the home. So no matter what you choose, you've got great opportunities in the home to talk, and wherever you're all at in your faith formation with your kids.
So we chose public school. I went to public school. My husband went to public school. I was a full-time public school teacher in San Diego City Schools before I had my kids teaching middle school. And then when I had my daughter, we ended up moving to Fallbrook. She was extremely premature, born 2 pounds, 8 ounces, very developmentally delayed in all areas, had a feeding tube at birth, just super far behind, which is one reason I was so happy to come to Riverview and find this MomLife program. We started here when she was 2. This is such a blessing, this group that all of you have. And so once she was ready to go to preschool, she actually did go to Zion, which both of my kids went to Zion preschool, and we still go to church here at Riverview, and they also did the Awanas program. But one of the reasons we initially chose a public school is because she needed the services. So she was delayed in speech. She needed the OT, the PT, And at the Bonsall School District, she started out with the regional center, and they had a IFSP plan for her. It's like infant support plan, and then she was able to transition into an IEP, which is for kids that are delayed academically and developmentally. So they offered at the Bonsall preschool all these services for her starting at age 3, and she was able to get those for free and regularly at school while she was there. So that was and it was close to our home. She had a credentialed teacher that had all the background, teaching all the state standards, and so that really made sense for our family. And we've had a great experience there since. And then my kids both went to Bonsall Elementary, and they are not teaching, Christian values there, except for for kindergarten, both of my kids had Mrs. Barker. She's a member of this church here, and she teaches kindergarten. She's fantastic. She does exude all of the Christian values in her kindergarten classroom. I would volunteer in there once a week, and she is just a wonderful person that, teaches those values and the academics as well. So I think with the public school, you can just luck out and get some Christian teachers that are sharing their Christian values during school and some that aren't. But like Janae was saying, it comes from the foundation at home and what you're teaching. So I just felt like what they were offering, the services, the extra additional services, made it seem like the right choice, since we could help our children, follow with Christ outside of school. And so those are the main reasons. And now that my kids are in middle school, they also have the Fellowship of Christian Athletes Club at lunch, which is voluntary. It's an option. There's lots of different clubs, but they actually have campus pastors. I know Jeremiah was going, who's the junior high pastor here, and then they also have some from North Coast Fallbrook Church that go on campus, and they actually do a Christian sermon at a public school, and they ask questions and invite them to church group after, and it's really neat. So my kid's gonna have a core group of Christian friends in public school. So there's definitely opportunities, even though, of course, there's non-Christian friends as well, but they learn to love everyone, and as long as they stay strong in their values, it's been a really good choice for us.
So our initial, we knew we were going to be homeschoolers from the get-go. That was like not even a question. We thought we were going to be like you, full-time homeschool, get up the private, what is it called, the private, yes. But actually, when I first started at MomLife and we had the school panel, Becky was talking about how, there was charters, and I'm like, what's a charter school? Like, what is this? So I kept that in mind. So my daughter ended up needing therapy services as well. She was receiving therapy services through the San Diego Regional Center, and then she was transferred over to the Bonsall School District. So she wasn't going to school, but she was receiving therapy services there. Once it came down to kindergarten, I'm like, okay, we're not going to have her continue with public schooling. What are we doing? And I remembered the school panel thing. I'm like, I remember they were talking about, the charter schools. So we ended up doing Coastal Academy. Again, Becky, always in my mind there. She was talking about how the therapy services were so amazing there, which they are. So we went with them, not knowing that you get charter funds. Another blessing. So we thought we were just going to do the full homeschool track with the therapy services, and I ended up, I really feel like God just put Gathered Oak Farm in my social media feed, and I started looking into it. I found out, that although it's not said to be a Christian school, it is considered secular, but there are a lot of Christian families, including the founding family. So everything just kind of aligned where, happy accident, if you will, to just set my daughter up to have therapy, get the funds, and also be in that school environment, if you will. So it's been a blessing.
I just want to share that before my oldest went into kindergarten, I saw a panel like this in a group like this. And the thing that stood out to me that I still think about is, there's so many options, which is amazing, but sometimes it's really overwhelming. And then you're like, I don't know how to choose, like, what's the right thing? And what a woman said on that panel was, think about your family and your schedule, maybe your husband's schedule. My husband's in law enforcement. He has sometimes weekdays off. We like to go camping. Like, what is it going to look like to add school into what you're already doing now? Is it going to benefit you for them to, like, do you work? Okay, it might be an obvious choice. I need them to go somewhere because I need to work. Or we like to do this, Tuesday, Thursday, or whatever with our dad, whatever. Like, what's your family life like right now? And also, what's your child like? So, and like Becky said, it's very okay to change your mind. Even, is it Kara? Sorry. Kara said, in the middle of the year right now, she's switching because it's not working. So, certain of my children have different personalities. And sometimes they don't want to learn from me like they want to learn from someone else. And that doesn't mean it's like you can't homeschool, but sometimes you need them to go to another place so you feel sane, then that's okay. So I just want to say that, like, there's so many choices, but really look at, like, your home life and then look at your child. Like, are they, like, very, like, kinesthetic? And so you don't want to put them in a certain type of classroom. Like, there's different ways that they learn, and so consider that and then see what school fits into that. So for us, like I said, we're not doing it now, but the charter that they went to, a big draw, like similar to Janae, is that the school was K through 8th. So at that time, I had multiple, I had, I think, kindergarten through like maybe 5th or something, but they were all going to stay. They all stayed at the same school for several years. And so that was really important and helpful for me that they were in the same place. Also, it is a public school, but it has more of a private school feel, I think, because you have to do one of the days at home, that the families are a little bit more involved. And also, there was always parents there volunteering. So part of the reason we don't do it anymore is that some of that changed with all of the pandemic, but I don't know how it is now, so it's definitely something to look into, and just check before you went there. Obviously, you would want to tour this school and that kind of thing too. A school should always let you come and check it out before you're going to send your kid there. As far as like morals and that kind of thing, it's a public school, so there isn't any biblical instruction, but it's definitely, like, that school in particular, I Shine, they're big on kindness, and they're big on, like, conflict resolution. So, like, even up through the middle school, if there was an issue or people were being mean to you, can't sit with me at lunch or whatever, they would just have the whole class sit on the floor in a circle with the teacher kind of moderating and talk it out with them, which I thought was pretty unique. I don't know if a lot of other schools do that, but they definitely encourage the kids to kind of work through the struggles they're having like that instead of just letting that be out there on the playground. And I guess I think that's all for that question.
I just wanted to add on too, Sherry, you were saying like with Fellowship of Christian Athletes, if you decide to go the public school route and your school does not have this, another program that can get started and you can look into it is through child evangelism. It's called the Good News Club, and it's typically in your elementary schools. So that's something to look into. So don't feel like, you don't have those options that you got to wait till they get to middle school and high school when they do FCA. Good News Club is a lot of schools, and if it's not, you can actually look into the groups, because the San Diego charter actually is huge, and they're always looking for schools to be able to get into. So just know that as well.
Sherry said Bonsall has the Good News Club.
Okay, awesome. There we go. See, so they may even have that if your kids are in public school and you're like, oh, I didn't know. It is an after-school program. Fantastic. We've actually helped start it at some schools, and such a great program. So that is an option for public school elementary students. Okay, let's move on really quick. Let's see. Okay, so this is, y'all, some of you have touched on this. We've talked about different funds, things like that the state goes, or that can give you. But I do want to touch on this really quick because financially this does hit a lot of times. People are like, oh, how much does it cost to do this option or this option? So if y'all could just briefly kind of touch on, financially, like Janae, I know your school has, like scholarships and things like that. If you could just explain that really quick. And if you're at your school and you're like, we get the funding through them, but just briefly kind of explain financially whether you spend a lot of money yourself or how you kind of go about that within your own family.
So I Shine is a public charter school, so it's free. It's a public school, and you just have to buy like your school supplies and whatnot. Fallbrook Homeschool Academy, I just want to mention it again because it's local, was also free. It's part of the district, but I think it's just at home now more. It used to be like go 2 days and do 3 days at home, so you'd have to look into that, but those are both free options.
So there are no scholarships or anything to Gathered Oak. However, they have different programs to suit the family's needs. They could do like the 1-day farm school, the 2-day farm school, or the core program. The thing that's amazing is that because she doesn't specify, being like a Christian enrichment program, she can accept charter funds. So depending on what charter you're with, you can cover a good portion of that or even all of it if you're doing just like the part-time. So that's super helpful and amazing for a lot of families.
So for the public school, there is no cost. They do have a before school program that starts at 6 and goes till 8 and then goes after school from 2:45 until 6 if you do need it for a working family, and they do charge for that, but I think there are scholarships for that as well. But I think it's typically around $200 per child per month for the before and after school, but I know, they do, they can accommodate it if that's not in your range. They do offer scholarships. And other than that, there really aren't any other costs other than maybe like a $10 field trip here and there. The sports are free. The after-school tutoring is free. They do sometimes have options for sports after school that you can pay for at the elementary school, or like cooking classes, art classes that are monthly that you can sign up for a small fee.
The Compass Charter School is another public free charter option. They have 2 different programs. If you do an online school, you won't get the funding that people are talking about for lessons and that because they have their own teachers and own guidance counselor, everything. The options program is one where you do receive funding. Zion, as far as the learning center that my kids go to, is tuition based similar to the farm school. There's different options, 2-day option, 3-day, 4 to 5. The difference is that with the religious affiliation, charter funds cannot go directly to Zion. So that is one big difference.
So we go through Pacific Coast Academy, which is one of the homeschool charters in the area. They don't offer any in-person options as the Coastal and Heart Academy and some of the other do, but we get funds. Ambleside, the way that we the homeschool program that we do, again, it's just books, and so we spend probably about $100 every year because I don't want to have to give my books back. And then I use the funds from the charter to pay for piano lessons and for art supplies at home, or some of those like fun project boxes you can get. And then lessons. I know a lot of our friends do horseback riding lessons or different classes, dance classes, things like that. We don't do some of those things, but you can use the funds for anything that's education purposed. But then a lot of that stuff, for those of you that don't know, you have to give a lot of the stuff back. So if you buy something like a computer or, it's very, very helpful to have the money to then use for education, but a lot of the things need to be given back, and I have a really hard time keeping stuff that needs to be given back. So, or I don't want to have to keep track of it to return it. So we just buy the things that would have to be returned, and we, with our funds, or we do lessons and things like that. But the actual program that we do, and then our co-op is $25 for the year just to get a little bit of buy-in from parents and have a little bit of funds to do fun things with the kids throughout the year. But it's just community, so it's mostly free.
So unfortunately, there is a tuition. It's on. I'll Christian schools will have it on their websites, probably pretty easily accessible. There is a tuition assistance program. There's a legacy fund that is fundraised every year, and a lot of amazing donors, like generational things. And so it's actually needs-based, and it's through a third party, so you pretty much give them everything, and then that third party will determine how much you are awarded, and that has been a blessing to us. I mean, we apply for it, and we do get some money off, and that is a huge blessing. Also, I do want to mention, too, you do get a discount if you are a teacher. So my sister-in-law is teaching their kindergarten. She just started a couple years ago, and so now her kids are going through Calvin, which we are so excited about, and she gets a very good discount. So, yeah.
All right, so I'm going to combine another two really quick just for time. All right, so the question would be, how much parental time and effort is needed of your school choice, which I know some is not as much as others, but those that have, whatever it is, how much time with lesson planning, teaching, organizing, shuttling from extracurricular activities, conferences, etc. And then for those that homeschool, describe kind of with that also like how you chose your curriculum.
Really, it could be very little for us because it is just like a traditional school, so you get to just drop them off. If you're a working mom, that is very nice. On the other side, if you want to be involved, that is strongly encouraged. Room moms, field trips, all the things. I don't know. They go on retreats every year as your kids get older, so the beginning of school starts out with a retreat. I actually get to chaperone that, so we go to Forest Home for 3 nights, and I go with the whole high school, and it's amazing. So you get, the kids know you, and you know the kids and your kids' classes, and there's, ample opportunity for that. In fact, a lot of working parents send their kids there, so if you are not a working mom, you will be canvassed for help. So you have lots of opportunity.
So we chose our program, again, I said, the homeschool programs, if you Google homeschool program, there's just a bazillion out there, and sometimes it is really overwhelming to choose which math and which language arts, and again, that is you and your husband have to figure out, well, how much do I want involvement from this program telling me what to do or not to do, and I figured out I'm a medium, so I like to be able to check some boxes, but if I have too many, then I'll get overwhelmed and check none of them, and so we chose Ambleside, very Charlotte Mason, which is very biblical, very nature, and very the child. Education is life, and so everything that you do, your life should be involved in the kids' education, and you don't need to be looking at a textbook to be teaching and learning, and that's very much me. And so we chose it because of that. We just love books, we love reading, we love the flexibility of our home, our kids coming and going from the table, our kids doing stuff. My girls just started 4th grade yesterday, and so we had flexibility to start in February, a couple of weeks after the school year started, and so we're ready to start. So we picked up our books yesterday, and they finally gotten to the point where they can read to each other. And so they read their books to each other and then came and told me what they read, and it was wonderful. And I walked with the other 2 kids, and I read my book, and just kind of next to each other, very, very fluid, very family oriented, which I really love about the program that we choose. And I do very little prep. I kind of prep us for the whole year over our 5-week break around the holidays, and I slowly just research the books that we need, and I kind of have it set up, and my kids each have a binder that have checklists inside of them so they know what they need to do, and then they just have all their math and their handwriting, and it's just all in a binder for them so they can kind of come and go on their own when they're ready, and then they can ask any questions that they need. And then the littlest one has a fun workbook because he just wants to be involved and do his school too while the other kids are doing it. And so we just work through numbers and letters, and if he ends up coloring, it's just fine. But it still gives him something to do. So I try and heavy in the prep, as in just having everything ready, but I don't pre-do anything for the kids. When it comes to a lot of parents pre-read or they pre-lesson plan with a lot of homeschool programs, which are really fun and really amazing, and that just wasn't me to be able to keep up with that. So I like to do everything alongside them.
As far as time and preparation, since my kids are doing 5 days at the Learning Center, they work really closely with learning coaches there, which I love. It's a lot less butting heads for me and the kids at home. Um, the one who does Compass, that curriculum is already laid out for him, so that's just one that I check in on. The others, the Learning Center started offering a suggested curriculum just because for new families, boy, rabbit hole of all rabbit holes when you start checking into different curriculum options, and it is super overwhelming. And I really suggest for people being able to see other families and know that, I think that would be a great fit for my kids too. Just being able to take a look at different curriculum options, and I think that is just fabulous to have more resources and moms and dads and families to help recommend different options.
So for public school, there are no requirements for parent involvement, but they do love to have you there. You can volunteer once a week, twice a week, once a month. You can be in your child's classroom. You can be on the PTA. You can be in the library, wherever you are. And they do require a really in-depth background check where you do have to go get your fingerprints. They make you do the TB test. They do a full clearance before you are allowed on campus, which some parents don't like to do, but I think it's really good. That way there's no question about who's in the classroom with your kids, and you know that they are clear. So it's up to you how much time you want to put in.
So they literally do it all for me. So I have no prep, no nothing. They pick all the curriculum for me, for my child. But being with the charter school, they do provide all the samples that we need. If you go through a charter, for those of you that don't know, you have to meet with your, is it called the LP? I guess it depends on the charter school. You are assigned a specific teacher. So when you're on the homeschool track, you have to meet usually every 6 weeks, and you have to provide samples of your students' work. So they do it all for me. So I just get everything that they have done throughout the couple weeks, and I submit whatever I feel is her best work. And then other things that I do is, they have monthly field trips, which are amazing, and it's like a family situation. So I see a lot of you lovely ladies there on these monthly trips. And I'm like super involved. I'm actually about to start volunteering at the school. So yeah, it's as little or as much as you want, really.
For the charter, for us, the main thing of time is the drive. So you also have to leave early enough to miss the traffic and to get in line to pick up your kid. Then you have to sit there because the gate's not open and you can't pick up your kid. So that part of it was a lot of time. But during the day, they're just there. You can volunteer if you want. But I do want to say, we also use PCA, like Danielle, right now. And choosing curriculum is definitely hard when you're starting out. So I agree with Kara, if you can ask your friends who are already doing it and see what they're doing and what they like. But really, this is our second year. So last year I was like, okay, everyone's doing this math and everyone's doing this whatever because it was too many things. But now I've been able to see okay, that child does that math is so boring and they can't handle it, and that one it works for them. So I need to get the one with all the pretty pictures and the activities and the little box with the toy cars, for that person. And so you can kind of pivot and see what works for them. Also through PCA, which is another kind of overwhelm sometimes for me, but they have so many options. So I have one child who does a Zoom for math because she really wanted an actual teacher with instruction, and she can engage on a Zoom, and so she's doing that. Another one does a math program where it's all on the computer. It's a video she watches, but she puts her answers in, and it doesn't let her go on until she gets it right. So for me, with so many, it was hard. She would just do all her math, and I would say, okay, you're done, but I didn't never know if she was getting it right. So it's really hard to go back and then check every problem and see if they did it. So that checks it for her, and she's old enough to do that. And then I have little ones who I have to, obviously sit right with them, but it might be that each of your kids is doing a different curriculum because that's what suits them and that's how they can learn better. And so just also be open to that, but it is a lot to figure out. I also am with Danielle that I don't like to do any prep. It's very hard to find the time for that. So they call it open and go curriculums, where it literally says read to the child, and then you say, hey, this is so and so, and they have an apple orchard and there's 10 apples, whatever. Like, it tells you like what to say to them, and then you do the problems with them. So for me, that's what I always look for, is something that already just lays it out for me, because I don't have time to look at it ahead of time.
And to go with Pam with the samples, it's one sample per like subject. So don't think like you got to turn in like a whole bunch of stuff. It's just one sample. As far as like the drive, I was going to say we have some moms here who carpool. So sometimes if you find another mom that's doing the same thing, like carpooling is great as far as like the back and forth if they're on the same track. And then one more quick thing with what Becky was talking about. Well, actually quite a few of you. And to go along with what Alyssa said in the Bible study, less is actually more. And you get all these new like curriculums, the new fancy shiny things, and it's like, oh, I need all the manipulatives out there. You really don't. Like, you could use rocks instead of, buying it's like there's so many things that you can use in your own home that you don't have to get all the little things, because sometimes it just takes up and it becomes too much. And you're like, oh, I've got all this stuff, but I don't even use half of it. And that's taken me quite a few years to figure out. But I'm sure that y'all would probably say the same thing. Like, it's just, you want to definitely just hone down. And then also seeing, sometimes if you go to somebody's house just to see what their day looks like or their curriculum, but also we don't have anybody representing classical conversations, but with classical conversations, you can actually go and test it out. You can let your kid go, and you can sit and you can see what that's about. That sometimes can happen with other groups as well. I don't know about the farm school. Can you come check it out and like spend some time there? So check into that. That might be something that you're like, I want to go see what a day looks like, and I want to take my kid and see how they interact with that particular thing. So that's also options out there for you. Okay, so moving forward really quick. So again, I'm going to combine two really quick. And y'all have touched on this some, but resources available for children who struggle academically, and then also anything extracurricular that your program brings. So whether it be after school, before school, whatever kind of thing. So if your child has, struggles, what do they have to offer, or what are your options? And then also, what does your option give for extracurricular activities?
So the charter school as a public school definitely has the resources if your child has an IEP or anything that like I know students would have, like an aid, a one-on-one aid in the classroom. All of that is available there. And as far as extracurricular, it may have changed in the last few years. They didn't have a lot. They did have like one volleyball team or something. They would have sometimes like an art night or a science night, but for me, since it wasn't local, it was a little hard to get to those things for me.
So yes, if there's any therapy services that are needed or extra help, then the charter school is a public school technically, so they can provide all that. Otherwise, as a homeschooler, then you would get a private tutor. The thing that I specifically like with the farm school is that the classroom ratio teacher to student is something like 8 or 9 to 1 teacher. So like the teacher is able to focus on your child specifically for a longer amount of time versus 30, 40 kids versus the one teacher.
So for Bonsall School District, they offer all the services at the school, the speech, the OT, the PT. They also have a psychologist at school. They have a school counselor at school. They also have 2 separate resource rooms, a K through 2 room and a 3 through 5 room. So if anytime during the day, if your child is struggling and they have a plan saying that they need services, they can pop out of the general ed classroom and go get support services. So that's an added benefit. They also have many free extracurricular activities. They have a full-time music teacher where they get music regularly, a library, and then they do have some after-school classes. Some are free, some cost. They have a drama class where they do plays. They have sports. They had pottery. I think they also have Spanish, and I'm not even sure. There's so many. They send out like a huge packet every month with like 20 choices that your kids can choose from, optional if you want them to stay after.
My kids get, through the Learning Center, they're getting their art and drama and music and PE in the afternoons, so that's kind of built in there. As far as special services, IEPs, and that, again, the charter schools, the public schools, all have those resources. I will say, after seeing a lot of people go through the process, and I think they've been a little overwhelmed after post-COVID, a lot more people are utilizing the extra help. So just do not hesitate to advocate. You may have to really push. I just kind of learned that on the tail end because I was a little bit late to the game with one of my kiddos who needed some added testing in that. So do not hesitate to be the squeaky wheel if you need the added services.
Yeah, through the charter school, I believe they offer some of the services, but again, everybody lives in a public school district that do offer your services. So even if you're homeschooling, I know a lot of homeschool families that we homeschool with that use their public services at their public schools. And so I believe there is some trade-off with your homeschooling. But again, what you do at home can be different. Like even when you need those services, you can get them even through your charters and through the public, even if you want to homeschool, no matter which way you homeschool, which is really nice. There was one, and then for me personally, we homeschool in a big community, and all the kids are so different. And so I know that there's also the resources of all the other moms in our group, which I really love and appreciate. And then also doing at home, a couple people have mentioned the state standards, and we technically have to follow the state standards to go through the charter. So we do the check-in and all that kind of stuff. And I am just a squeaky wheel for my HST. And I kind of say, well, this is what we did at home. Here you go, whether it meets a state standard or not, because we're educating. And, you know, again, I believe education is life, and there doesn't have to be one specific thing that they're taught for them to move on. They're just being taught, and they are just learning in so many different ways. And so I personally love my HST because she knows me and accepts me for who I am, and I work the best that I can with her to do the things that she has to do for her job, not to make it hard for her, but she also loves me the same way. Backwards. So I've had a lot of friends who have had to switch their HSTs because not everybody treats them the same. Some people value the state standards a lot more than they just value being educated. And so that's also like another thing. Services are also people who just understand what you want and what you think is best for your family and can help you along in that way. And then also my kids are, they're all homeschooled, but their reading and their writing and their math is exactly where they are. So again, my twins are technically starting 4th grade and are still finishing 3rd grade math. And my 1st grader just started their 3rd grade math because he just finished the 2nd one and he was bored. And so he was just coloring and he was getting frustrated. And I was like, well, why don't you just do theirs? And so he just started that. And there was just a really sweet, availability for that. And I know a lot of school programs offer that of just keep moving or just take a minute and slow down. And it really just offers that of I know exactly where they are and who they are. And so I can help them just where they're at instead of having to worry about the next thing or them being behind. I don't even think they understand what that means to be ahead or behind. When people ask them what grade they're in, they look at me and they're like, I don't understand. They just don't understand that question because we don't do everything very linear in our home.
So extracurricular activities, I sort of touched on that throughout the whole time. So there's a lot of options. I do want to mention too, a beautiful part of this school is that we have concerts at night where the kids get to, you all come back and they're dressed in their best clothes and they get to perform up on stage. And so you get to just enjoy the music, instrumental and choir and the things that they practice. So that's a neat way, sort of a musical extracurricular, just the musicals, plays after school, sports. Once they hit junior high, that's really when the sports start. And they have an opportunity to try all the sports and go year round. And then also 1 or 2 days a week, they get to go and travel and play all the other, they play Grace Christian and Escondido Christian, all the little schools around that are local. And so I would assume most Christian schools have the same. I'm not sure about Zion in town, but my daughter has dyslexia. We tested her through Potter Junior High because that was free. You can pay for a private test, but we decided to go the free route for that. And so we took her to Potter. She was tested. diagnosed with dyslexia. And so I think instead of it being an IEP, I'm not super schooled in this. I think it's an ISP. We gave that to Calvin. They have a PLACE program. So if your child is of need for something like that, they do accommodate. So she has a plan. So she's not, forced to read out loud in class. Just certain things, maybe if she wants a test read to her, like Spanish is really hard for her because of that. And so she can ask to have the test read to her. She went so long without really having these needs because we waited so long to test her because she was at Calvin. They just kind of gave her special things because that's kind of how they are. But, I didn't want it to be a disadvantage once she had to take the SAT or the ACT, things like that. So we did end up testing her, but that was a great way, and it is free. And so I would assume you can do that with any school you're in. And then, so the PLACE program, if they need like a one-on-one aid, that is also available through the PLACE program. So it's kind of a growing new thing, and the director's amazing. And so I think it's just kind of like needs-based.
All right, last question really quick before we close up. What is the biggest challenge you face in educating your children, and what has been your greatest joy?
I think the bad news for us is that the school is really far, and so we do a lot of driving. It's 30 minutes from our house, and so I never wanted that to be a factor in how involved we are, so we do spend a lot of time on the road, in the car, killing time in the car, so, just have to be creative with that. So that personally is the bad news. So I think something to consider when you're looking. How far do I have to drive in traffic? How long does it take me? Because mileage doesn't matter when you live here, right? And then the good news, so we were, real quick, I know we're rushed, but we were sitting around the family dinner, chatting at the table. All 5 of us were sitting there, and my son's trying to convince my husband and I why he should go to Fallbrook High. He just wants to go to Fallbrook High. He's going to be in high school next year, and so he's giving us all the things, all the reasons, and my sophomore in college chimes in, Wyatt, and he says, I would be a different person if I had gone to Fallbrook High. And he said, Calvin saved me. And makes me emotional because it was like, oh, this is why we did that, and it was really sweet. I never expected. I think my husband and I looked at each other like, oh my goodness. And so I do think that is a joy to see just that. We cannot protect our children in this world. And in fact, I think sometimes it's good for them to see the hard things of this world and the good timing and under our roof and supervision so we can explain the hard things in life. But, I do feel like it was a protection in a lot of ways. Definitely not perfect, but it has served as a protection for their hearts and just a foundation of not just, it's like really knowing who God is, just in all those Bible classes and chapels and just spiritual emphasis week, all those things. I do know that was a huge testimony for him to say that just 2 years out of being there. So,
sorry. Oh, biggest blessing. Biggest blessing I would say for me is we sit around the kitchen table a lot, and we're chatting. And the other day, one of my girls was singing into her pencil, and I'm like trying to concentrate with my youngest, and I'm like, shh, and she couldn't. And the other ones, are rolling out of their chairs. Things like that for me, it just like, we just have a lot of fun together. And for me, it took me, like, I very much believe in what we're doing, but it kind of took a little while for me to see some of the fruit I would read about, like, in this program. Of just like the kids making their own connections. We're reading like literature books. We're not reading like kid books starting at a very young age. And I'm like, I think they're remembering and I think they're picking it up. And then like all through last year, then be like, oh yeah, remember that one lady who sat in this boat in that one book? And I was like, no, but I'm glad you remember. Like there's really sweet moments of their like connections that are being made and their joy, like when they ask like, can we see this person? And I'm like, no, sorry, they're in school still, but we'll see them this weekend. Like their cousins and stuff, like they're really starting to see their life. And my son, we were driving on the way here and he was like, Mom, I don't ever want to do anything but homeschooling. And my 4-year-old is like, yeah. And he doesn't know what that means, but it's like they are really enjoying getting to see their enjoyment of what we do and the friends they get to be with and the things they get to choose that they do is really sweet. And then I would say one of the hardest thing is doing it. and I know everybody feels differently, all the moms I school with feel differently about that, but like making the choices of what curriculum are doing and being flexible. Like some people aren't flexible, and so they're like, oh gosh, I'd have to change. Like, what does that mean? But like just doing it, and having the discipline to move through each day and have the days where you are like, well, am I teaching discipline today, or am I teaching like free spirit today? And I don't know which one is best for my kid. Like we have to make all those choices every single day. And I would say sometimes that gets to be really hard and really overwhelming, and then having to look back and be like, oh, I think I did that wrong today. Well, tomorrow I'll try again. So that's hard for me sometimes.
My answer is really close to that. Yeah, it's the biggest challenge is definitely just as soon as I think I've got my finger on it and I've got it figured out, something changes. Somebody's needs are different, and I didn't meet this need and I didn't meet that one. But somehow that's also the biggest joy to watch, like my 19-year-old, and I had such mom guilt for so long because I didn't get him in piano lessons. I didn't do this, and music is a big part of our family. And you know what? God had him learn piano differently than I learned, and he plays by ear. And in spite of what I thought my shortcomings were, or maybe I should have made a different choice, God doesn't let me sit in that and think, no, these are my kids. They are going to have different opportunities, and the blessings are unexpected all the time. So it's a joy and a challenge.
So one of the challenges of public school is that you're releasing them into the world with all different people, which is also a blessing. So they're seeing people from different backgrounds, socioeconomic, different disabilities, different religions, and that they're learning everything, and that they have to navigate through it themselves, put the filter on, and then advocate, when they need help or when there's a problem. So one of the joys is my son, who's in 7th grade now, he was in middle school, and they're teaching, things that we don't believe in, evolution and like natural selection and these types of things. He comes home and he says, Mom, they were teaching this in my class, and I raised my hand and I said, this is not what I believe. And my teacher said, I don't believe this either. I'm a Christian, but this is what we learn in school. And he said, oh, okay, and he got it. Like, just because they're teaching it doesn't mean that this is what you believe. And I was like, wow, what we're doing at home is working. And I was so happy that the teacher was, not going to say, like, this is what we're teaching, so you have to believe it. She completely backed him up and said, good, just answer correctly on the test. The information, you have to learn it and know it, but that doesn't mean that it's what's inside you or that you believe it. So I think it's great that, and then the other thing for my daughter, I was nervous. She really likes, she's one of